Ferrari's hopes are tied to the upcoming aerodynamic updates. Those who like numbers will surely have noticed that the infamous 0.3 per lap gap at the Miami International Autodrome in Florida practically tripled. This is not an encouraging sign for the near future. Realism must be acknowledged, because in Formula One, nothing happens by chance. McLaren knows this well, dominating effortlessly. The Woking team is about to unleash its first updates of the 2025 Formula One season. The paddock is well aware that the British squad rarely gets these things wrong. That makes the outlook even grimmer. Ferrari can certainly improve the car, but thinking it can catch up to the best is quite difficult to believe at this stage. Not to mention Mercedes, Red Bull, or even Williams, who also beat the Italian side in Florida. The Prancing Horse is therefore waiting for a miracle. The situation is critical, and for that very reason, from a broader perspective. Perhaps, regretfully, it would be better to once again write off the championship and focus solely on next year. However, considering that the money has already been spent, the Prancing Horse will test several updates on track to see if the 2025 Formula One season can still be salvaged. The new technical directives have brought a wave of performance issues for many teams. Ferrari, in particular, has been grappling with adapting to these changes while trying to maintain their competitive edge. The balance between innovation and regulation compliance has never been more delicate. Another hope lies in the technical directive TD18, which in the collective view should slow down Mercedes, but especially McLaren. In reality, considering the current technical state of the SF-25, the FIA's measure might not sit well with Ferrari. History does not help either. Every single regulatory change in recent years has never been beneficial. On the contrary, they have consistently hindered Ferrari. The poor performance of the Ferrari SF-25 has a clear cause. Despite the fact that Miami was a challenging track, the aeromechanical compromise they hoped to find wasn't even remotely achieved. In fact, Ferrari wasn't able to build a setup around any of the car's strengths. The operating window, as we know, is already quite narrow, but in Florida it was even more so. Of course, we are talking about just one race, and many factors may have affected the poor performance. With only one free practice session available, the time to fine-tune the setup, which is currently very hard to dial in, was entirely insufficient. During the single free practice, the Ferrari engineers and technicians relied solely on driver feedback to develop yet another extreme setup, forced to radically alter ride heights and suspension stiffness, both front and rear. Usually, the Maranello team shows up with a better base setup and a more linear progression. This time, everything was missing. To optimize both fast and slow corners, a working compromise must be found in terms of angles and stiffness on both axles. Trying to cover the entire lap, the Maranello team completely lost the right direction, a fact that was quite evident in the United States round last weekend. With an ineffective setup, the drivers found themselves in a car that almost never managed to shine in the race. Toto Wolff, for example, clearly explained the main difference with McLaren. At Mercedes, they managed to get the car into the so-called sweet spot only for a few laps, while at Woking they achieve it consistently, lap after lap. Ferrari doesn't even come close to Mercedes. Ferrari is therefore ready to go all in, but will it be enough? Frédéric Vasseur spoke about the aerodynamic updates that will arrive in the upcoming races. At this point, they are more than necessary, since despite the Miami Grand Prix going poorly, the Italian team believed it was at least on par with Mercedes. Instead, it ended up fighting Haas, and especially the two Williams cars. Clearly things went wrong in Florida, and the SF-25's level is presumably higher. Still, no team stands still, and like the Maranello-based car, the others will also be modified. The first thing that needs to be addressed is verifying the setup creation in the simulator, because missing the mark at the first try can happen, but having data so far from reality, as happened in Florida, is not a good sign, even aside from the short blanket that can only be corrected with new parts. The team principal of the Italian side has lost some of his credibility in the past month. Nonetheless, he confirms that between Imola and Barcelona, the necessary corrections will arrive. More downforce is needed in order to expand the aerodynamic map and have a better ability to balance the car. Moreover, the issue of ride heights must be resolved once and for all, and the same goes for tire activation. Looking back at the Miami GP, Ferrari ends a weekend to forget in the worst possible way. The exchange between Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and their respective engineers is just background noise to a non-existent performance. In both race stints, the Maranello car lost about a second per lap to the two McLarens. The Italian side was limited by a lack of rotation and poor management of rear overheating. The SF-25 car is far behind its direct rivals and is battling with Williams to defend its title as the fourth-best team. McLaren dominated the race, its performance only questioned by a difficult start and Max Verstappen's arrogance in defending the lead. The Woking team is truly strong, now charging ahead toward a double world title without brakes. In the first race stint, Ferrari didn't come alive, with Charles Leclerc struggling to maintain a pace even close to the Williams cars. The Monegasque driver suffered a huge gap, losing about 1.2 seconds per lap to Piastri. Charles kept complaining about a lack of rotation. His tire degradation, similar to that of his teammate, had a less favorable slope compared to rivals, highlighting the team's more complicated tire management. Lewis Hamilton also had front-end issues, only managing to regain ground on Ocon in the second half of the stint. The Brit also struggled to overtake, given the identical power unit and Haas's good top speed. At the front, McLaren set an unbeatable pace, with Piastri, helped by the battle between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, running 0.3 faster than his teammate. Kimi Antonelli also performed well, despite a tough race start due to imperfect tire preparation. Kimi didn't have Verstappen's pace from the first corners, becoming easy prey for the MCL-39S. He ended the first stint lapping a second slower than Russell, but was able to make up ground on Max at the end of the stint thanks to good tire management. In the second part of the race, Ferrari made noise only via radio. Hamilton, with a tire advantage, asked for Charles Leclerc's position for 3 laps, but lost the benefit of the mediums due to dirty air. Lewis Hamilton ended his stint with similar lap times to his teammate, but with the tires no longer in good condition, he couldn't catch Antonelli to then give the place back to the former Alfa Romeo driver. In short, instead of using track position to their advantage, the Ferrari duo hindered each other, blocking one another and finishing the race in 7th and 8th place. Piastri and Norris delivered a dominant hour of racing, lapping half a second quicker than their direct rivals. Piastri benefited from the advantage built during the first stint thanks to the Verstappen-Norris battle and held off his teammates' comeback. The 3 Mercedes-powered cars also showed good pace, finishing in the top 5, Antonelli, Russell, and Albon. Antonelli on hards and Russell on mediums managed to keep rivals behind. In particular, Russell's tire degradation was minimal, finishing the second stint with a similar pace while making excellent use of the yellow-banded Pirellis. For Ferrari, Imola will be a critically important round. So will Spain. The split updates must revive the SF-25. These upgrades, aimed at improving rear downforce from the floor, ride height management, and tire handling, might be the last of the season, as the Maranello team could choose to shift the remaining budget entirely toward development of the 2026 car.